single and waiting for Mr. Right? Are you in a relationship but still not quite sure if he's the one? Are you married and sometimes wondering if you've made the right decision? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then this podcast is for you. I am your host, Sharon Tillman, and welcome to the He's Worth the Wait podcast. This podcast is to promote healthy, whole relationships and to educate you on how to produce the very best version of yourself so you can meet the very best version of the one who has been chosen for you. Go with me as I share my story, as I share my journey, as I share my truth and my testimony while inspiring, uplifting, and encouraging you to know that He is worth the wait. Let's talk. Hello. Hey guys, happy Friday. Welcome to another episode of He's Worth the Wait podcast. I am your host, Sharon Tillman. How y'all doing tonight? Y'all doing good? Listen, I am doing amazing. This has been a busy week for me. So I've been like super busy this week. I've had like some major stuff with work. I've had some major stuff with school. My baby girl is going to kindergarten next week. So we've been preparing for that. And and it's so early because my older two kids are still going to be, of course, out for the summer until the end of August. And so just getting adjusted to that, really getting into the logistics of like she's going to kindergarten almost a month before her brother and sister, and trying to make her feel like we've really maximized the summer, right, for her. So we've been busy this week. So nevertheless, we got a few more things to do just to prepare for next week. But I'm excited about this journey for her. Y'all, my baby is so smart. So if you know her, you know that she is a super smart little girl. She's like 5 going on like 25. For real. I be telling people like she been here before. They be like, what you mean she been here before? Like been here in Charlotte? I be like, no, she been here before. Like she been here on this earth before, and she know a lot more than she's supposed to know at 5, right? But I know I'm not the only parent. Like these kids, they are different. They're super smart. The verbiage that they use, the intelligence of their words, how they formulate them into a sentence. I'm like, you better get an A in English. That's all I know. Anyway, let's jump right in. So this week I posted a video talking about expectations. So of course I'm going there tonight, right? So I have been having a lot of conversations. I'm telling y'all, I have some of the best conversations, right? So I've been having conversations like really on expectations. And so I just really wanted to dive right into it and kind of just talk about it, because I think a lot of us actually set ourselves up for like false expectations. Whenever you're thinking about expectations, like this is what we're expecting from someone else. We're expecting them to do this. We're expecting them to do that. We're expecting it to look like this. We're expecting it to look like that. No matter what the situation is, listen, I don't want people to get so caught up in thinking that whenever you're thinking expectations that it's only like relational when it comes to husband and wife or boyfriend and girlfriend. This is expectations in our parents. This is expectation in family members. Like there are a lot of expectations in our jobs, just like different things. So I want you to take all of that into consideration whenever we're talking about expectations, right? So as I was saying, even in the video that I posted earlier this week when I was talking about expectations, how we set ourselves up for expectations from people. We're expecting for people to show up like we do. So a lot of times whenever we're thinking about what we bring to the table, what we bring to the table in relationships, what we bring to the table in our friendships, what we bring to the tables in, relationships with family members, what we bring to the table, even when it comes to our jobs. Like when we're thinking about those things, we are literally thinking about what we're expecting in return. I do this, so I'm expecting that. I can take it a little further. And sometimes we even get this way with God. And so I know a lot of you are going to be like, okay, girl, you just taking it too far. But the reality is we have expectations even on God, even on Jesus, to do certain things, to perform certain things in our lives. If we are tithers and we pay our tithes, we expect God to meet our needs. Like, of course, this is what the Bible say. But the expectation is if I pay my tithes, then if I fall in a bind, God, you going to bail me out because that's like money I've sent up, right? Or, when we are talking about giving, and the expectation is we give in order to receive. If I'm giving you something, I'm looking for something in return. So it's like, even though we don't want to look at it from that magnitude, the reality is this is how deep our expectations go when it comes to everything in our life. Everything in our life gets an expectation. So when we're talking about relationships and friendships and how we show up for people, a lot of times we're expecting people to turn around and show up for us in the same manner. It's like, wait a minute. If I'm loyal, I expect you to be loyal. If I love hard, I expect you to love hard. If I go hard for you, I expect you to go hard for me. If I'm a gift giver, I'm expecting you to give me gifts. Does that make sense what I'm saying? So we're expecting people to show up for us. We're expecting people to show up in the same manner as us. And they're not doing it. And we are the ones that are getting let down. We're the ones that's getting our feelings hurt because the reality is we're expecting for people to be us and they're not us. They're not us, right? And so I am a firm believer in meeting people where they are. Listen, you guys know that I am a psychology, my bachelor's is in psychology, my master's is in counseling. And so in psychology, we dealt with this on a significant level of really meeting people where they were. And the importance and the significance of meeting people where they were. We can't expect for people to be at a certain level and they're not there. We can't put expectations on people to be things that they are not. And if we're trying to communicate with someone who is supposed to be on this level and they're not there because we're expecting them to be there, then the reality is we're setting ourselves up for failure. And so we're the ones that are getting let down in every scenario. The expectator, or the one, is that a word? The expectator? I don't know, guys. I may have just made that up, right? I don't know. I'm flowing. I might have just made that word up. Somebody look that up in the Webster and see if that's a real word. But the one who is expecting is the one who gets let down. That is the one who feels crushed. You feel hurt. You feel like somebody done you wrong, like somebody done took your feelings or took your heart and ripped it out, depending on the severity of the situation. So it's so important, guys, for us to make sure that we are not setting that expectation on people to show up for us the way that we show up. Is it okay for you to want it? Absolutely. But you can't expect for people to do it because when they don't do it, you're the one that's hurt. But more importantly, it's like they never signed up for that. They never agreed to that. They never said, hey, listen, I'm going to be you in this relationship. So you're going to receive exactly what you give. That's not how it goes. We don't have this verbal agreement or verbal contract whenever we go into this thing and we're like, hey, I'm showing up just like you are. So if you love hard, I'm loving hard. Now the reality is, do we want to be outloved in relationships? Absolutely. We want to be in relationships where I'm trying my best, like we're trying our best to outlove each other. One thing that I always say, and I've been saying this from day one. So anytime I get asked to come and speak, and when I say speak, guys, I don't mean like be super deep, but like anytime I'm asked to come and speak at someone's bridal shower or someone's wedding event, even if it's like, there, whatever it is, if I'm asked to come and speak, if I'm asked to give words, then I say this every time. I say this everywhere I go. If your focus becomes each other, then everybody's needs get met. So if I make it my business to please my husband and my husband is making it his business to please me, then we are always meeting each other's needs. There's no deficit. Nobody's not receiving, because the reality is my focus is you, your focus is me, and we're out loving each other in a sense. So I'm trying my best to outdo you in doing me and vice versa, right? And I think it's important. I think it's so important that we look at it from that scenario, because a lot of times people go into marriages thinking like, okay, I'm going into this marriage for what I can get for me. What can I get? What is it that I'm going to receive in this marriage? And we can't be selfish in that sense to go into this lifelong commitment, where we're exhausting these vows, where we're taking this journey, we're learning each other every single day of our lives. It is naive to go into that covenant, that union where we're literally taking two lives and we're trying to formulate one life, two purposes, and we're trying to align into what it is that God is saying concerning us. It is crazy for us to go in that thinking that we can go in that selfishly. So it's important for us to always make sure that we're in that place. So to get back to what I was originally saying, would we like to be in a relationship where we are being outloved? Absolutely. I would love that. In fact, that is what I desire. But I can't set an expectation on that for someone who has never agreed to that. Like, we can have conversation and I can tell you, hey, this is what I desire. This is what I choose to do. And if this is where you are, then we're in agreement to that. But I can't just think in my mind, because a lot of times we just think it in our mind, right? I know what kind of person I am. So he's going to automatically know. He's going to automatically get it. And it's going to be some reciprocity up in here, because this is what I want. This is what he's going to give me back. But the reality is nobody's a mind reader, right? So it's important to have conversation. I'm big on conversation. I am big on conversing, y'all. I believe in it. So if you know me personally, then you know your girl ain't playing. I can talk. Y'all can't tell I can talk when I be up here doing these podcasts, right? But not just that, not just in that sense. Like, literally, I believe in conversation. I believe in getting to know a person. I want to know everything there is to know. I want to know the things that make you upset. I want to know the things that make you happy. I want to know the things that trigger you. I want to know the things that you're expecting. I want to know things that you want, things that you desire, goals that you have. I want to know about your parents. I want to know about your childhood. I want to know about your growing up. Have you ever been touched? Have you ever felt this way? I want to know everything. And I say that because the more we know, the better, right? We're going to do life with these people, right? So you want to do life with somebody. Doing life with somebody is not just, if I feel like it, I do it. If I don't, I don't. Absolutely not. When you choose to do life with somebody, you got to get up intentionally and choose this person each and every day, regardless of how you feel. So if you wake up today and you ain't really feeling it today, you like, you know what? I don't even like him today. I don't want to be bothered with him today because I don't like him today. Absolutely not. When you choose to do life with somebody, it's like, hey, listen, even in my feelings, I'm choosing to do life with you. Even when I'm not feeling it, even when you done made me mad, you done made me upset, I really low key don't even want to talk to you today. But I'm finna do life with you because intentionally I have chosen this. So it's a journey, y'all. It's not like, I know TV make it look so surreal. TV makes it look so fantasy. Like, oh my God, I'm going to meet the person who was designed for me and we're going to fall in love and live happily ever after. Okay. But the reality is you got to learn how to live with this person. And the amazing thing, I was married for almost 14 years. And I can say that there were things that I was still learning about my ex-spouse even later on in our journey. We had been together for almost 5 years before we got married, right? So we had almost 20 years in the game when we separated. We had been together for almost 5 years when we got married, and there were still things that I didn't know. There were still things that I was learning. So I'm saying that to say it's a journey. You don't arrive, okay? You don't just wake up one day and be like, oh, we got this thing. We done mastered how to be a wife and how to be a husband and how to be the couple or whatever. You don't, okay? So let me get back to expectations because y'all know I can go off left field with marriage because, that's my first ministry. Anyway, so even in relationships, we would love to be outloved by the person that we love. We would love to be outloved in relationships, but the reality is it doesn't always happen. So we have to make sure that we are not setting false expectations for things that we are desiring. We have to make sure that we are not setting false expectations for things that we've mapped up within our heads of what we're expecting, what we want to happen, and how we want it to transpire, right? So I love to give example. I love to be transparent because that's just who I am. You know your girl, I'm super transparent. So I can think of several different scenarios in my life where I have been setting expectations for people and they just haven't been meeting them. And I know a lot of times we like to talk relational, like husband and wife, like boyfriend and girlfriend. But the reality is I think our first set of expectations comes from our family. It comes from our foundational love. So if you didn't listen to my podcast on foundational love, you need to go back and find that one because it was a good one. Okay. But it comes from our foundational love. So the expectations that we learn how to set, that we learn how to create, they have a place where they start. So for me, my expectations started with my foundational love, with my parents. And everybody knows my story. If you've been following me just a little bit, okay, then you know my journey. You know part of my journey, you know part of my story. And I reveal more and more every day. Everything that God has healed me from, He has given me the permission to speak on it. He's given me the permission to be transparent because it's going to help free somebody else. So I don't tell my business because I just want y'all all in my business. I tell the things that I know people still struggle with. And I know that there are other people who have not only been assigned to me, but there are other people who literally go through these things. And a lot of times they go through it alone. A lot of times they go through them behind closed doors. And it's transparent moments like these that free people when they have nobody to talk to, when they have nowhere else to go. So I like to talk about my journey. So with my foundational love, which were my parents, I set expectations, So as a young girl, I'm growing up and I'm expecting for my mom to be a certain kind of mom, I'm expecting for my dad to be a certain kind of dad. So, you're watching other people's lives, which is, we get caught up in culture. That's where the world is right now. But when I was growing up, I'm not that old though. But when I was growing up, we didn't focus so much on the culture of like what was happening in the world, what was happening on TV. See, like reality TV now is way different than it was when we were growing up. In fact, and I could be wrong, so don't 1000% quote me on this. But back when I was growing up, I don't remember reality TV at all. Like all of this Love and Hip Hop, Real Wives of this, Housewives of this, Real Husbands of this, all the reality shows that we have now, when I was growing up, they were non-existent. So with that being said, we didn't have a lot of TV to watch and to mimic. We had shows like The Cosby Show and The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and Different World. You know, them was kind of our shows. Am I telling my age a little bit? But anyway, so we would even look at those shows, though. That's a good point. We could even look at those shows and be like, hey, listen, even on those particular shows, we would see the dynamic of the mother and father, or the dynamic of, you know, Carl and Harriet, or, you know, whatever. We would see these dynamics and we would be like, I wish my parents were like that. Or I want my parents to be like that. And so that's where the expectation first formulated, honestly. So for me, I used to have these expectations for my parents, and I wasn't old enough at the time to understand that they were in different places in their life, and what I was expecting from them, it just couldn't happen. And so I remember growing up, like I remember being young and I was like mad, y'all. I remember being, I don't want to say I was a bitter little girl, because that's a big statement for me. When you're immature, you're young, and you really just don't know any better, I don't want to say bitter. I think bitter is more so when you have more of an idea of where you are and why you feel the way you feel. But for me, I can just remember like being upset and just feeling away, right? Because my parents didn't move or didn't meet the expectations of what I saw. My parents didn't look like the parents of my friends. My dynamic, my household dynamic, it looked so different. And so I can remember just really putting myself in that place of just expecting. And I know a lot of people will say, hey, listen, you was a young girl. It was okay for you to expect that then. You're absolutely right. But as I grew older, and as I really started to mature, there were still things that I just I just didn't understand. And so for me and for my parents, as I grew older, I had already gotten married. And I tell you guys, when I got married was when God really started to do work on me. It was like, once I got into that union, God was like, okay, girl, now I got you wrapped and surrounded. I'm about to break you down so I can build you up. Okay. But I remember still not understanding things, still just having these expectations of my parents, even as an adult. Like, okay, I'm an adult now. I'm expecting this relationship to look like this at this age, and vice versa. And even as I continue to grow, even as I continue to go, I had that expectation. And so when they weren't meeting that expectation, I was hurt. I was let down. Like I was broken, y'all. And I was getting mad at that time. And then at that time, I can say that, you know, it might have been formulating something else in my heart, because I'm like, I just don't understand. You didn't parent me at a young age. Now you have another opportunity, and it's like you're not grasping it. And so it took me really understanding not just where they were. So I wrote a book entitled Pain for Purpose, which you can get that book anywhere books are sold. And in that particular book, I wrote a chapter called A Mother's Love, because this book talked about all of the things that God had allowed me to endure that really built me, that really made me who I was, or becoming, because I'm still not there yet. Okay. So I haven't arrived. Okay. You don't arrive in this journey with God. It is literally a journey, and we are taking this journey each and every day of our lives. So I haven't arrived. So it's not who I've become. It's who I'm becoming, because I'm still becoming her. Okay. So I wrote this chapter in the book, and I needed to let my mom know that I'm writing this chapter in the book, and I'm going to get deep into how I really felt, how your love for me really affected me in my growing up. And so when I was able to do that, I was able to have conversations with her that really allowed me to understand the dynamic of where she was. So for years of my life, I never knew a lot of the things that my mom told me. So a lot of the things that she told me that was concerning, or that was surrounding her own growing up, her relationship with her own mother, things that she had endured, even pain that was attached to me. Listen, I know a lot of times we get into situations where we like to really judge people for things that we don't understand, but we have to be very careful, because there was a pain that was attached to me for my mother, and it was really hindering her relationship with me. And for years, this was happening, and I never knew. I didn't know that. So I didn't know that we're fighting against something here that's keeping us from I never knew that. So the entire time, I'm just thinking that she's choosing not to, when there was really a blockage, there was really a barrier. So anyway, moving forward, I remember having this conversation, and when I had this conversation with her, it was like God was allowing me to open up another realm of understanding and love for my mother, that was like, okay, now I understand why you couldn't be what I was expecting. So, and I'm going somewhere, so follow me. In my, not my preacher voice, but follow me. So I understand why you couldn't be what I was expecting, right? And so it took for that conversation to happen. It took for that chapter in my particular life, because although it was hurting, it hurt my feelings. I grew up feeling a lot of things. I went through abandonment. I went through rejection. I felt like I didn't belong. I felt like I had no place in my family, in my life at one point in time. And, like, I'll even go a step further. I had these girls in school who I was friends with, and they seemed to be way closer to my mom than I was. And that bothered me, right? But I never knew exactly what it was. So I'm saying this to say, a lot of times the expectations that we are expecting from people, they don't have the capacity to even hold up, or the capacity to even, what is the word that I want to use? They don't have the capacity to even meet the expectation that we are putting on them. So we have this great big expectation for people, and the reality is people are where they are because of why they are, because of what they've gone through, because of what they've experienced. And a lot of times they don't have the capacity to meet the expectation that we're needing. I heard Bishop T.D. Jakes say this one time, and I think, like, this thing literally blessed my life. And anybody, I would say anybody who ever feels like you find yourself in a situation where you just feel like you're too much for people, or you feel like people don't love you correctly, or just it's something like you want so much more from people than they can give or willing to give, then you should go listen to it. I don't know what the title of the message was. I just remember this insert from it. But he talked about being a gallon, right? And he talked about being like a gallon size. And I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember it verbatim, of course. But he talked about being a gallon size. And he talked about the people that we're expecting, they're like pint sizes. So they can't be what we need them to be because they don't even have the capacity to hold what we already are, right? In a nutshell. It wasn't like that verbatim, but you got to go find it and you got to listen to it. If I can find it, I'll put it with this video. But it blessed me because the enemy will set up within our minds, right? Let me tell you how the enemy works. The enemy will set up within our minds. The enemy will try to make us feel like we are too much for people, that people just don't love us, that is something wrong with us. I don't know why I'm going here. I feel God, so I'm just going to go with it. But the enemy will make us feel like that we're too much for people, or that people just don't like us. Like the enemy is always trying to get in our minds, right? He's always trying to mess with our heads. How better to do that than to put you in a place where you feel alone, where you feel abandoned, and then you automatically isolate yourself, right? Because I would do this. Automatically isolate yourself because you already feel like nobody wants you anyway. You don't know where you belong anyway. We have to be careful not to allow the enemy to get into our minds, to get into our hearts, to get into our spirit. But we got to believe what God has said. We got to believe God for who he is, the words that he has spoken, that he has already written in the Lamb Book of Life. We got to believe him and believe what he said concerning us. Okay? So I don't know why I was going there, but I went there. So there we are. And now we're back. But I'm saying that to say we got to rid these expectations, because we're setting these, and listen, I am not saying, and I have to be very clear, because a lot of times when you're talking like this, people will take it into their own perspective, and the next thing you know, they've formulated their own idea of what you're trying to say. I'm not saying that you can't have that you shouldn't have any expectations at all. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not even saying, because I'm reading this book with my group at church, and we're understanding the purpose and the power of prayer, which is Myles Munroe. Listen, y'all, I love me some Dr. Myles Munroe. Do you hear me? Like, I didn't even really know him as much whenever we were like when he was like alive and doing all these preachings and teachings and things like that. But I started to follow him because I saw something, I read something that he did on marriage one time. And when God started pulling me towards that way, I think I said this in one of my podcasts before, when God started dealing with me concerning marriage, it was almost like I was already in class. I was getting a degree in it before I really actually went to get a degree in it, if that makes sense. God was giving me so much stuff. So I started like really following and listening to Dr. Myles Munroe. I started following his teachings, listening to his teaching. I would read books, and because I love to read. Like, I'm not a nerd, but I do really actually like to read. I gotta be stuff I like to read, but I do like to read. Anyway, but I really got into him. So anyway, I'm saying that to say, we're reading this book, Understanding the Power and the Purpose of Prayer. Y'all, it's on Amazon. It's an amazing book. And if you got an opportunity, if you like to read, go read it. Listen, there is someone who is reading it on YouTube. So if you're not a reader and you need to listen, then go find on YouTube. Someone is reading it. You probably still want to buy the book so that you can read along. But someone is reading it. I think she reads it chapter by chapter, if I'm not mistaken. And so that'll be a great opportunity for you to at least dissect it. But I'm reading this book. And so in this book, they're talking about, it's talking about the power of prayer. It's talking about the purpose of prayer, how we effectively pray and things. And so I got into something on faith. So one of the chapters was talking about, our faith in God and how we believe, how we can have faith, but we can have God-like faith, right? So we can have faith that believes, but then we can have God-like faith, because they're always saying, "Oh, you have to be realistic in your faith. You have to be realistic in your thinking." But the reality is, those who think realistically are the ones who miss the mark, because we know that God can do anything, everything, and He works in the supernatural. So I'm saying that to say, not to get super, super deep in the expectations, but I'm saying that to say it's nothing wrong with you expecting things, right? So one thing that I teach in relationships is boundaries. I teach boundaries. I teach knowing what you like, understanding what you need, um, and just making sure that you've got healthy boundaries in place for every walk of life. And I say that because a lot of times people think that they're not necessary, but they are absolutely necessary, because when you don't have healthy boundaries set in place, then you kind of go into a little toxicity. You start attracting things that you don't necessarily want to attract, not because you might be a bad person, but because you don't have a boundary in place for that. And so the retrospect is, a lot of things and a lot of people are getting past that place in you that they shouldn't get to. They're getting access to parts of you that they shouldn't, because there are no healthy boundaries set. So, with that being said, healthy boundaries are important. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't have healthy boundaries in place, which can be like expectations in a sense of what you desire. You're okay. I'm expecting. I'm waiting for my husband, right? So I've got all of these things, right, that I desire in my husband. I desire for him to be my partner. I desire for our purposes to align. So I'm always talking about purpose partner. Y'all, I've been married before, so I don't just want a husband. I've been married before where, he had his thing and I had my thing. And because our things didn't align, it didn't bring us to the place where we needed to be ministerial wise. And because I desire to do life with my husband, but to do ministry with my husband as well, I want him to be my partner in the sense where our purposes align, like what we're doing, it aligns, and they can flow together and we can do ministry together. Because a lot of times what people don't understand is we are our own individual people. So I'm going to come into this relationship with my own purpose according to God, and so is my husband. But there is a purpose according to God that he has created and designed for he and I. And so we have to be able to enact that purpose together accordingly. And so that is what I desire in my husband. Now, the expectation part comes in to where if I'm dating, right, which is like data collecting, if I'm dating and I meet a guy that not necessarily I can say our purposes don't align, right? But if I meet a guy who's not, okay, so I desire a man of God. I will not settle for anything less than that. I need a man of God who can lead me. I need a man of God who can speak life into me, over me, and cultivate the thing inside of me that God wants to produce on the next level. I need that. I desire that. I want that. I won't settle for anything less than that, right? But if I meet a guy who is like doing everything else, like he's fine, he provides, he got, whatever your list look like, but he doesn't do that. He doesn't lead. He's not, submitted to Christ, because my husband has to be submitted to Christ. That's the only way he's going to get to me. His relationship with Christ is more important than his relationship with me. So if I meet a guy and he's not submitted to Christ, but he meets all of the other criteria, I can't expect for him to lead and to do the things that he would do if he was submitted to Christ, as if I know that he's submitted to Christ first. Does this make sense where I'm going? I'm trying to get you guys to understand the difference, because we can set these false expectations, right? We can set expectations on people to do these things and to meet these needs and to be all of the things that we're desiring for them to be, because that's who we are. But the reality is, if that's not who they are, that is not how they're going to show up. And so it's important for us to know that, or for us to understand that we can expect them to show up in a way that they're not created, or they're not designed or wired, or they just don't desire to show up. We can't put that expectation on them to show up in that way if that's what they don't choose, if that's not what they're choosing to do, if that's not who they are, if that's not what they've agreed to. So I'm saying all of this to say, I need you guys to understand we gotta do away with these expectations for people to meet these needs and to be all of these things for us, because this is who we are. This is how we choose to show up. We're all our own individual people. So just because you decide not to show up a certain way doesn't mean that I have to. So it's the same thing. Just because I desire to show up like this, I can't expect you to do that if that's not who you are. And so the reality is, we've got to get to that place where we understand that we cannot put that expectation on people to do that. We can't put the expectation on people to show up like we show up and to do the things that we would do just because these are the kind of people that we are. We have to stop doing that. We got to stop. Listen, we got to stop it. We've got to stop it. And I'll go a step further, because I'm big family oriented. Everybody who knows me knows I'm big family oriented. So I love to do stuff, right? I didn't grow up with my family. So for me, family is everything, right? Family over everything. That's what they be saying. Well, that's your girl, of course, not before Christ, but the girl loves family. So, I like to do a lot of things for my family. And so I find myself sometimes expecting my family members to do what I would do, to make the sacrifice that I would make, to go the long way because I go the long way. And I had to learn, like, Sharon, they're not you. She's not you. He's not you. Like, you have to understand, we are unique. We are authentically unique people. God has created us all to be exactly how he wants us to be. So the way that I'm wired to show up, I can't put that expectation on other people, because that ain't who they are. And so when they choose not to show up like that, I can get mad about it, or I can be like, you know what? That's me. That ain't them. Let me let you show up how you show up, sis. Let me let you show up how you show up, bro. Because the reality is, I gotta meet people where they are and allow them to be who they are. It's so imperative for us to know the difference and for us to not expect for people. And listen, we can't be expecting it to the point where we deplete ourselves, and then we're sad and we're upset and then we're hurt, and then we got our heart on our sleeve. No, we can't do that. And we're walking around here feeling all of these things, and they're walking around here like, I never said that I was going to do that anyway. I never said that that's who I was anyway. You assumed. I ain't never agreed to that. I never told you that I was going to show up like that. And so the reality is, when you stop and when you really think about it, you're like, well, darn. They didn't say they were going to show up like that. Like, I'm expecting you to do it because this is what I would do. I'm a natural giver. So I'm just going to give naturally. I can't expect you to just do it just because that's what I desire or that's who I am. I got to meet you where you are. And listen, I am the first to say, believe people for what they show you. Meet them where they are. Believe them for what they show you. Okay? And when you see who they are, where they are, and if they never change, I mean, like, never change. You have to decide if you can do life with them right where they are. Can I do life with them in this place? Can I do it? They never change. Excuse me. This is the way that they're going to be forever. Can I do this forever? Can I do life with them here forever? And if you can, cool. You allow whatever is going to manifest on the inside of them to manifest on the inside of them. But if you cannot, be okay with your goodbye, sis. And I say that because when you set yourself up for expectations and then they don't meet them, you ready to run anyway. You ready to kick them to the curb. You ready to throw them away. You ready to do all of these things. Listen, if you see that it's not, if you see that the place that they're in, because you're believing them for who they really are, is a place that you can do life, you can't do life there. You can't dwell there. We have to understand the places that people fall into our life, right? I think I talked about this on another one of my podcasts. I don't know if it's one that I've like aired, like one that's already aired or one like I've recorded. I got ones that are recorded. But I like this spontaneous kind of, not necessarily spontaneous, but it's almost like God will allow something to drop into my lap, and that's where I would lean towards. Okay. So I don't know if it's one that I've already aired or if it's one that I've like pre-recorded. Oh my goodness, guys, I'm sorry, I forgot what I was getting ready to say right here. Oh my goodness. But if you can't do life with them, if you can't do life with them right where they are, then you have to be okay with that goodbye. You got to let them go. Oh, thank you, Holy Ghost. That's where I was going. So I don't know if it's one that I've already said or not, but I'm always talking about the place where people fall into your life. You've got, if we're looking at from a tree stance, right? And one of my best friends, we used to say this all the time to each other. And she used to always say, I think it was maybe like a Medea clip or something. Maybe something Medea said in one of her plays. And she would always send it to me every time she heard it. I would send it to her every time I heard it because this is how we felt about each other. We find ourselves at that place of being the root for each other, right? It ain't a lot of roots in the ground. You got this big tall tree that might have a whole lot of branches and then a whole lot of leaves, but you don't got a lot of roots down there at the ground. So you got to understand the place where people fall into your life. You got to understand the necessity of the people in your life. And you got to know if it's a root, if it's a branch, if it's a leaf. You got to know the significance, the importance of the people in your life, to know, because ultimately we are what we think. Ultimately, we create the world. We can create the world by the words that come out of our mouth that we live in. If you don't have people that dwell there, that's a dangerous place. Because if you got people who find themselves always speaking negative, always thinking negative, always woeing is me, those people will pull you to that place. And next thing you know, that spirit will fall on you. And so we have to be very careful of the company that we keep already. So it's like once they show you who they are, if you can't do life with them there, hey, be okay with the goodbye. And that doesn't even mean you got to X them out your life forever. And if you see them, you got to like turn your head and act like you never even knew them. You don't got to turn your head and act like you never knew them. It's not that deep. But you got to be okay with that place to where you're like, hey, how are you? Oh my God, it's so good to see you. Take care. That's it. We ain't got to catch up. We don't have to pretend like, oh my God, let's do lunch. Yeah, no, we don't have to pretend that anything is there if it's not. Listen, I feel like as grown people, sometimes we get so lost in the sauce. We get so caught up in it. Like we feel like we have to formulate relationships and pretend. Not at this big grown age. We don't have to do that. We don't have to pretend to be anything that we're not. Hey sis, how you doing? That's where we are. I don't have no dislike for you. You don't have no dislike for me. But that doesn't mean that we've got to do life in that capacity together. Some people are not supposed to be within your circle. Some people are just supposed to stay on the outside. You've got people that we do people with our church family in church. That doesn't mean you invite them into your personal space. That means we do life together because you are my brother and sister in Christ. But we don't have to, you ain't got to come over to my house for Christmas Eve. I don't have to go to your house for Thanksgiving. Like, we have to understand the relationship. We got to understand where people are, and we got to move accordingly. And so God had really been dealing with me on that, because of the way that I grew up, guys. And I'm going to just be very transparent, because I don't want y'all to think, when I be talking about these podcasts, I'm always talking about things that I'm healed from, but I don't want y'all to think that this girl is perfect and she get it right all the time, because I don't. And so I really struggled with community for a long time because of the way that I grew up. I didn't grow up like that. So I struggled with it. And I went to, I attended a place for ministry one time before, and it was toxic to me, you know. And a lot of times you stay in situations for the long time because you don't know any better. And when you know better, you do better. But because of that situation, you kind of build this barrier, right? And I'm not the only one, because there are a lot of people who experience church hurt and things like that. Some people experience church hurt and never go back to church, right? So you get into a new environment, but you build a barrier because you don't want to let too many people in, or you don't want to be hurt, or you just don't want to find yourself experiencing the same thing. And the Lord had to deal with me. And he allowed me to know that I needed to embrace community. And this is why I go through the situation that I go through, because I had, listen, I'm going to tell y'all about the good Lord Jesus, right? He'll mind you having to repeat a class, okay? He looking at you like, oh, girl, tuition's on me. You can take this class as many times as you need to get it right. I got this tuition covered. Don't worry. You ain't, these ain't student loans. Okay? But God will allow you to go through something until you get it. And you might go through it the first time, and then you might come out, and then you find yourself going through it again, and then you're like, wait a minute. I ain't even there no more. Now, why am I still? And then you got to self-evaluate and be like, okay, Lord, if I'm here again, it must not have been the place. It was me. Help me to see, help me to know, help me to understand. So I remember going through this particular lesson about 2-3 times for God to get the embracing of community to you, girl. And in the beginning, I ain't gonna lie, I was fighting it. I was like, okay, yeah, I ain't going through this again. Deuces, I'm about to bounce. I'm about to bounce. Because that's how we feel when you get to a certain age. You pick and choose your battles. And there are certain things that come up in life, and you be like, you know what? Yeah, no, I ain't going through this again. I'm be out, because I'm too grown. I choose peace. But the reality is, choosing peace means learning how to do it. Learning how the fruit of the Spirit, learning how to really use them. We always talk about the fruit of the Spirit, but what is the importance of the fruit of the Spirit if the only one that we ever going to deal with is God and Jesus and the people who are the closest to us, who understand us? Yeah, no. The fruit of the Spirit is for you to learn how to do life with community, right? And I had to learn that. Y'all, I had to learn it. I really had to learn it. But I tell you what, the girl learned to listen. And so now I can speak from that place. The importance of learning the roles. And see, sometimes we get it twisted. But the reality is, once we learn the places, once we learn the roles, then we understand. I can do life with my community. I don't have to bring them into my personal space. I don't have to bring them into my circle, my inner circle, but I can do life with my community because God has placed that there for me. So I don't want to jump off topic, but I want us to understand it all goes into retrospect with expectations. And when you got to let them go, you got to let them go. But we have to make sure that we are not setting expectations for people that they just cannot fulfill, because some people just can't feel the expectation. And, sometimes it's not even that they don't want to. It may not be that they don't want to. It may be something there. It's a barrier or a blocker, or they don't know how. And everybody is not always, I tell my son, because my son is almost 18, y'all. I know. I hear y'all in the back. Girl, you do not look old enough to have no 18-year-old son. Girl, I know, I get it all the time. I get it all the time. But my son is almost 18. And, he's preparing for what he wants to be when he grows up, what he wants to do within the next year when he graduates from high school and goes to college. And, he's preparing for this. And so he and I have conversations all the time. And so in our conversations, I'm always telling him that there are two people. You come to this crossroad in your life, right? And there are going to be the people who didn't have the opportunities, who didn't have the fathers, who didn't have the mothers, who are going to adapt to the environment to say, I didn't have this growing up. I didn't have a mother to speak into my life. I didn't have a father to, cultivate me. I didn't have opportunities, whatever. And they'll adapt to that environment because they'll use it as their excuse. Or maybe not their excuse. They just use it as a reason to not change, to not do better, to not desire more. I didn't have anyone to teach me how to be a mother, so I don't be a great mother. I didn't have, that fatherly example in my life, so I just choose not to be a great father. But then you have those other people who don't have those things and they choose to be different. I didn't have a mother growing up, but I know what that felt like. I know the voids that I felt. I know the places that I felt insignificant because I didn't have a mother. And so I choose not to be that. I choose to be the opposite for my own kids because I never want them to feel that. I never want them to go through that. I never want them to experience that. So it's so important for us as a people. It's so important for us to just make sure that even when doing life with people, even when coming to that crossroad with people where you're believing people for who they are, like, I can't even see where they come from, because a lot of times people think your past is what defines you. No, it's not. You're not defined by your past. Your past is your past. What are you doing right now? What are you doing right now in this current moment? I know what you went through, but where are you right now? How are you growing from what you went through? Because we all got a past. We've all done things that we're not proud of. We've all said things that we're not proud of. We've all walked an area of life that some of us wish that we can take back. Some of us may regret. Some of us may be like, okay, God, I hate that I ever did that. I'm going to take that to my grave and nobody ain't going to know but you, of course. But we're not defined by that. But how did you come out from that? I know you went through a divorce. You're not defined by your divorce, but how are you going to be better for your next marriage? How are you going to be healed and whole before even getting into a relationship to even do? What decisions do you make in order to be better in your next relationship? What did you learn? I know what you went through, and I know you're not defined by that, but what did you learn in the process? So we really have to just evaluate where people are. That's why I always say meet people where they are, because people will show you exactly what you need to know. People will show you exactly what you need to see. Like, you will know. People will show you. And so when they show you, believe them. And then you make the decision, because ultimately after that, the decision is up to you. You make the decision if you want to do life with them after that. You make the decision if you, whatever needs to happen next, whatever the next is, whatever that is, you get to decide. So take off the expectation and believe people for where they are, for who they are, and for what they're showing you. Okay? Listen, I love you guys for real. I want to talk about even being depleted from this, because we can set expectations to the point where we can become depleted, and we're depleting ourselves, and next thing you know, we're at the deficit from what we've been expecting others to do, or just overexerting ourselves. Listen, this thing can go really deep. I don't know if I'm going to part to it. This may just be a TikTok video to talk about the depletion and the overexertion. I don't know how it's going to come out, but however it does, I want you guys to stay tuned. Follow me on this journey. Listen, it's a journey for me. I'm not perfect. I don't have all the answers. I don't have it all together. This is my journey. This is my experience. These things that I'm able to come and talk to you about, these are literally things that I've walked. I have walked these things out. I have, in my 37 years of life, let me just go ahead and throw the age out there, because your girl look good to be 37. But in these 37 years of life, y'all know I have to crack a joke in there. That's just who I am. But seriously, in my 37 years of life, I have walked so many journeys. I have exhausted every vow there is in marriage. I have been through everything that a person can go through literally in marriage. I have experienced things within my family. I've experienced things within my foundational love with my parents. Like, listen, God trusts me. That's all I can say. He's always saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. Now I have the opportunity to see it the way that God sees. And I have the opportunity to not just to have had these experiences, but I've had the opportunity of going through the process and getting healed from them, so that I can help someone else. And it's never what you go through, but it's always how you go through it and how you come out on the other side of it, because God has He's already given us the ability to overcome. It's up to us to actually overcome it. So listen, I don't know how it's going to come out, but I want you guys to stay tuned, and I want you to follow me on this journey as I just continue. So I'm going to start doing guests, right? Because I know y'all love to hear me talk, and I love to hear myself talk, but it's always better when you can talk to somebody. And just having another perspective there. I really want to talk about marriage, because I love marriage. And I know a lot of us on this journey, He's Worked the Wait. This is where we're going. This is what it looks like for us. And so I want us to be able to really break this thing down, because I don't want us to be praying for a husband that we're not prepared to receive. Can I say that again? I didn't know if I could tap the mic or not. But I don't want us to be praying for a husband that we're not ready, we're not prepared to receive. We've got to make sure that we are prepared to receive the husband that we are praying for. Because guess what? He's praying for things in the wife like we're praying for things in the husband. You think God is going to give us what we need but not give him what he needs? Come on. We don't want to keep prolonging it. We don't want to keep holding it up, because at the end of the day, God's timing is God's timing. Let's be in preparation for it as it comes. So I have a special guest coming, and he's going to be able to come from the biblical stance of a husband. And listen, y'all know I'm excited. We're going to break this thing down. We're going to break it down. We're going to have so many, listen, there are going to be no topics off limits. We're going to have so many different conversations, so many different things that we're going to talk about whenever he comes. And it'll be a couple of sessions. So it won't be like he'll be here just this one time. He's going to actually come and do a few episodes with me. So we're going to really have an opportunity to really break it down and communicate. And I want you guys, listen, if you are listening to this on Spotify or Apple, you have an opportunity to even put your questions there. If you don't want to put your questions there, then, I mean, it's on Spotify, Apple, iHeart. I don't know if iHeart gives you an opportunity. I don't even know if Google gives you an opportunity, but I know that Spotify does, and I know that, Apple does. So listen, if you don't want to go there, you know my website, www.iamsharontillman.com. I am Sharon Tillman, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. Okay. So if you've got questions, if you've got things that you want to know, whatever it is, I want you to go to my DMs. I want you to find me on social media, send me your messages, send me your questions, whatever that looks like. But I want you guys to have the opportunity to really sit down, to listen, and to ask the necessary questions that you need to ask. Listen, this thing is going to be so good, and I am super excited about it. So I want you guys to follow me on this journey. Listen, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I appreciate you guys coming every Friday listening to this podcast. I am so grateful to God for the opportunity. Listen, it's not about me. And I say this all the time. Your girl is super humble because it's not about me. It's not even about me because I went through it. God chose me to go through these things because I would have been like, oh yeah, God, I'm good on this one. But he saw something in me, and I'm so grateful for what he saw. And so I really just want him to continue to cultivate that on the inside of me. And so I'm so grateful for you guys tuning in. I know that there is a we assigned to me, and I know that for everybody that this podcast is supposed to bless, it will. Thank you so much for joining. I am your host, Sharon Tillman, and we are out. I love y'all for real.